Faces of History is a research paper and a presentation. It's assigned every year in the Classical Conversations Essentials program as a capstone culminating event. So students between the ages of 9 to 12 have 3 years in a row to do this project. It's a chance for them to use all the skills that they've been learning throughout the year in the Essentials program, their writing skills, their grammar skills, their research skills, and they're able to put all of that together in one final project. They're able to select the historical figure of their choosing, select their resources, and decide what topics that they want to write about in this paper. And then they're able to share all of that work that they've done in an oral presentation, usually done in the first person, a lot of times done in costume, in character as that person. It's a wonderful project, it's a wonderful assignment, and students love it every year. But we know that for parents, it can be a lot of work. This assignment takes place over weeks. It requires trips to the library or to the bookstore, or even ordering books online because your student might have chosen an obscure historical figure to research. Not only that, but there's the process of writing the paper, gathering all your sources and taking notes, formatting the paper, editing, and then there's also preparing for the oral presentation. It can seem like a lot of work and it can seem like a daunting task, especially if either you or your student has never done this before. It's a big project, but it doesn't have to be a stressful one. In fact, it can be a really great experience for both the teacher and the student, as long as we have our priorities right. Here are 3 things that we want to make sure that we are prioritizing as we lead our students by example. First, we can prioritize peace over panic. Decide beforehand that it's going to be a peaceful month of preparation and watch your child follow your lead in that. Give clear, concise instructions, but be willing to give them multiple times when your student is trying to wrap their mind around what it is that you're asking them to do. And set measurable expectations early on. Next, we can prioritize the process over the product. Faces of History isn't actually about the final product. It's really about learning, owning, and eventually mastering the process of research and of writing and of presenting. The skills of finding good sources, of outlining and selecting topics, the skill of writing a paper and editing and re-editing, and then the skill of adapting all of that into an oral presentation. These are all great things. In fact, they sound a whole lot like the 5 canons of rhetoric, don't they? Of invention and arrangement and elocution and memory and delivery. That's what they're really working on. And I don't know about your 9-year-old, but my 9-year-old is not an expert rhetorician. So expecting that in the final product is too much. But what I can expect is for them to engage with the process and get better at it over time. You've probably heard this before, but if you haven't, let me be the first to tell you, the Essentials program in Classical Conversations is a bridge. It connects the Foundations years to the Challenge years. Yes, they've been giving presentations every week in Foundations, but those have been short. And those have been not necessarily about topics that they've researched. This is a little bit different, but it is preparing them for what's next in Challenge. They will have plenty of opportunities to continue working on that final product as they enter the Challenge years. Between science fair, mock trial, debate, senior thesis, there is just so many opportunities for them to present and practice the art of rhetoric. Right now in Faces of History, it's just a time for them to begin to learn the process and start mastering it and get comfortable with it so that when it's time in Challenge A for them to do a research paper every single week, they have that process down. That's not scary. They can just continue working on refining that presentation and choosing great topics that they enjoy. By focusing on the process and not putting all our energy and all of our expectations on the product, we are enabling them to have future success in the Challenge years, of course, as they're older on into adulthood. But even more than that, we are actually encouraging them to have a wonderful final product this time in this year, because when the process is done well, when the process is focused on, of course, the final product will be great. And finally, we can value and we can prioritize play over perfection. Our Essentials kids are getting older, but they are still children. It's okay to let our 10-year-olds write like 10-year-olds. We can guide them, we can give them suggestions, but it's okay if they write like they're 10. They won't always. It's okay to let our kids research somebody from history that they're very, very passionate about if they're willing to do the work, even though it means that sources may be a little bit harder to find. It's okay to let our kids make their own costume and have some buy-in and some input in that, even if it doesn't look quite like our artistic vision would have imagined. And it's okay to let them add a fun element to their presentation if it helps them remember it, if it makes it more engaging for the audience, if they're owning that skill of presenting. Absolutely have fun with it. Okay, so now we have our priorities straight, but we still need to actually do the project. I know that you're here in this video not to get some theory about what to prioritize, but actually some advice to help you get this thing done. So let's do that. One thing that makes the process a little bit easier is to have Faces of History conversations throughout the year in Foundations. You can use the weekly memory work that they're learning in Foundations as you dig deeper into it at home with your students. Ask, is this a person you might be interested in learning more about? Is this a person that excites you? As you're doing some of those earlier papers in Essentials, see the kinds of things that are piquing your child's interest and use that to start helping guide the conversation as you select a historical figure. If you're still having trouble selecting a historical figure, the great news is that there's a lot of help available on CC Connected. You can find lists of historical figure from every Foundation cycle so that you can begin narrowing down the choices of some people that you might be interested in. Some names on some of those lists are surprising that they may not have occurred to you right away, but they are great topics to research. You can begin the process of research early on without your student necessarily knowing that's what you're doing. Once they know the historical figure that they'll want to do for Faces of History, you can just start gathering books and read them for fun. Read them together, and you can start thinking through which ones would be great sources to use. Make sure you attend the IEW watch parties that your community hosts so that you can be trained in guiding your student through the process of writing this paper. Andrew Pudawa breaks it down step by step in how to outline, how to fuse, how to combine sources. He even shares an amazing tip for how to make it not visually overwhelming for your student as they are trying to juggle all these papers. If it's your student's first year in Essentials and it's their first time doing Faces of History and they're a little overwhelmed at the thought of doing all of that writing, it's okay to be the scribe. It's okay to hold the pen as they dictate what it is that you want to put down on the paper. You may find that after a little bit of you doing that, they'll be willing to take the pen themselves and continue writing it on their own. When it comes time to adapt the paper into an oral presentation, let your student take the lead on that. Let them be able to take ownership of that because that makes that presentation easier to memorize and easier to deliver if they're saying things they're excited about and that they chose to say. For instance, there might have been some things that your student discovered in the research that didn't quite make it into the paper because of the process of summarizing or because it just didn't belong, it didn't fit in the paragraphs that they had. The presentation is a great place to put in some of those more fun facts. Remember that costumes can be as elaborate or as simple as you decide that they are. Don't feel like you have to spend all your time, all your money, all your energy or effort on meeting someone else's standard on what the costume should look like. You and your student can have fun with it and decide what you want to do, whether you want to buy something, whether you want to make something, and just let it be another fun part of the project, but not a stressful part. Faces of History is fun. In my house, we've been doing this for the last 8 years with 2 years left to go. And it's going to be bittersweet when my last child does his final Faces of History presentation. My kids have done things from my oldest choosing a person from each cycle that has his same first name. My second, who decided to find the rarest, most obscure, most hard to find research for person, all 3 cycles, and she made Faces of History fun. My third decided that she wants to choose strong characters and she wanted to do leaders, bold leaders and trailblazers for every year of Faces of History. So it was just really fun to watch her personality find people to research that she connected with in that way. And my youngest now has decided that he wants to do a trio of composers. So he chose one composer last year, and then this year and next year, he'll do a different composer. And it's just amazing how every child is able to connect with this project in a different way and make it their own. The process has been different for each child because they're different people, but the result has been the same, which is that they are able to tackle a big project over time and not feel terrified of it. They're able to give an oral presentation that they're proud of. And at the end of it, they're just so excited and so relieved and excited to do it for the next time. And that's the point of this project, to celebrate all the hard work that they've done and also show them that they're capable of so much more. So have a great time as you prepare for Faces of History with your student. Don't be scared. Keep your priorities straight, and you're going to have a great time.